Who are ISIL? ISIL is one of the many names of a terrorist organization from the Middle East. ISIL in turn stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. It's sometimes also referred to as ISIS, which is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or sometimes simply as IS, which is the Islamic State. There is a further name, which is Daesh, which is based on the Arabic acronym for Al-Dawla al-Islamiyyat fi al-Iraq wa al-Sham, which basically means the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, or the Levant. Now, if you haven't seen it, check out part 1 of this series, which is the history of ISIS up to 2014. But when we start off, it's a terrorist group that was founded in Iraq, although it had also recently gotten land in Syria due to the ongoing civil war there. In 2013, they also prepared themselves for an offensive in Iraq, after fighting off elements of the Free Syrian Army unhappy with the territorial gains of ISIS. They entered Iraq in 2014, following major protests in western Iraq by Sunni tribesmen who were angered by the situation in modern Iraq against what they saw as anti-Sunni discrimination. Following the back of this, they were able to capture the cities of Ramadi and Fallujah, which had already been attacked by these Sunni tribesmen whom ISIL made an allegiance with. This campaign was incredibly bloody and saw the total collapse and retreat of the Iraqi army in this area. Despite years of training and billions of US dollars meant to make it a formidable fighting force, they gave up largely without a fight, and ISIL was able to take over large parts of the country. This culminated in the capture of the city of Mosul, the second largest city in all of Iraq. And it's from here in Mosul that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIL, proclaimed on the 29th of June the existence of the Ad-Dawla al-Islamiyyat, which roughly translates to the Islamic State, naming himself the Caliph and it a Caliphate, and that all Muslims worldwide should pledge their allegiance to this new Muslim state. This state, however, was incredibly violent and brutal in its discrimination of a multitude of different people. It particularly caught the attention of the West with their actions in Sinjar, when they had defeated local forces and chased many of its local people, the Yazidi, up Mount Sinjar, where they were being massacred and starved to death until a US airlift was able to get them out alongside the efforts of the Peshmerga forces. At the same time, other groups started to declare their allegiance to this global caliphate, including groups in the Philippines, as well as some in Libya, in Egypt, and also creating a new province in Afghanistan. Indeed, the Islamic State drew in volunteers from across the world who heeded its call. The largest groups of people came from countries such as Russia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Tunisia, although it shocked many in Europe to know that many people from European countries also went over, the largest numbers being 1,700 from France, 760 from Germany and the United Kingdom, and 400 from Belgium. It's estimated that over 40,000 different people from countries outside of Iraq and Syria came to fight alongside this new Islamic State. By the end of 2014, however, the United States and several other countries decided to militarily intervene against the barbarism of the Islamic State. This was in coordination with forces on the ground, particularly the Kurdish Peshmerga in the north of both Syria and Iraq. At the same time, the Syrian government was being aided by Russian forces, also made gains against the Islamic State. However, in 2015, they were joined by the Islamist terror group Boko Haram in West Africa, and they came to global prominence for their terror attacks in Europe as they began to lose ground in the Middle East. They particularly targeted countries such as France, Germany, and Belgium, and Turkey, inspiring people using online social media in a way that had never been seen before in its effectiveness. However, by 2017, the Islamic State on the ground was being assailed from all sides. Its capital, Mosul, fell in July of that year, while Raqqa was next to be taken in October. It wouldn't be until 2019, however, that the last territory held by ISIL were in the town of Bahus Fakani on the Syrian-Iraqi border in the desert was finally taken, and so the Islamic State sank into the desert sand. It's also in that year that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi himself was killed. However, while the territory of the Islamic State has gone, the mentality and the mindset, as well as the horror that they inflicted on the people that they encountered, will never be forgotten. And so we need to see where the future is going with this group, and whether they are simply dormant as they had been in the past, or whether they have actually been defeated in the hearts and minds of the people they affected.